I came home late from work that Monday night, exhausted after 12 hours at the office. The moment I stepped through the door, my husband's hand cracked across my face. "Do you know what time it is?" he screamed. "We've been waiting. Get in that kitchen and cook. Now." My daughter laughed from the couch. Not a word of defense, just cruel mockery. "You're so pathetic, Mom." I touched my stinging cheek and looked at them both. My husband, my daughter, the two people I'd sacrificed everything for. And in that moment, I made a decision that would change all of our lives forever. Thank you for being here with me. Before we continue, take a moment to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel. Also, please note, this story includes some fictional elements added for entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real names or situations is purely coincidental. It was 10 o'clock on a Monday night when I walked into my own home for the last time as a prisoner. I didn't know it would be the last time, not consciously, but something in my body knew. The way my fingers gripped my work bag tighter, the way my jaw set into that familiar clench I'd perfected over 30 years of swallowing words that could have saved me. The house at 2847 Arbor Glen Drive sat quiet in the Ballantine gated community, all manicured lawns and security gates. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, granite countertops. The kind of place people pointed at on Sunday drives thinking those people have it made. They had no idea. The porch light was off. Nathan hadn't turned it on for me in over a decade. I fumbled with my keys in the dark, my fingers stiff from 12 hours reviewing financial statements. Senior accountant, controller, impressive titles that meant I was the one everyone called when the numbers didn't add up, when someone needed explanations for missing funds. My back ached from hunching over spreadsheets all day. The door clicked open. Inside, the living room glowed with television light. Nathan sprawled in his recliner, the expensive massage chair I'd bought him 3 Christmases ago. At 65, he still carried his college football build, though the muscle had softened into weight he used like a weapon. His gray hair was uncombed, reading glasses perched on his head like he'd forgotten them. Melissa sat curled on the couch phone screen, lighting her face. 29 years old, still living at home, working part-time retail when she bothered. She didn't look up when I walked in. Neither of them did. "Hey," I said, quietly setting my bag by the door. "How was your day?" Nathan grunted. The TV volume stayed the same, some cop show, all sirens and shouting. Melissa's thumbs kept scrolling. "Did you two eat dinner?" I tried again. "I can make something if—" "Figure it out yourself," Nathan said, eyes on the screen. Melissa snorted without looking up. "You're never here anyway." The words landed like stones. I'd heard them 1,000 times, but tonight they felt heavier. Or maybe I was finally tired enough to feel their full weight. "I was at work," I said, hating how defensive I sounded. "Someone has to—" "Don't start." Nathan's voice rose. "Don't start with your martyr act." I counted to 3. "I'm not trying to start anything. There's something important I need to—" "Important?" His chair snapped upright with a mechanical whir. He stood, and even at 62, I felt small. 6'2" of controlled anger. "You know what's important, Peace. Coming home without listening to your nagging. I'm trying to have a conversation." "Sounds like nagging," Melissa muttered, finally looking up. Her eyes, my eyes, the same dark brown, held nothing but contempt. Nathan stepped toward me. "Don't start your drama, I'm warning you." 30 years of conditioning screamed at me to apologize, retreat, make myself smaller. But tonight something else was louder. "Nathan, we need to—" His hand came out of nowhere. The slap cracked across my face so hard my vision whited out. I stumbled backward, shoulder hitting the doorframe bag, sliding across the floor. Pain bloomed hot across my cheekbone, radiating into my jaw. The room went silent except for muffled TV dialogue. Then Melissa laughed short and cruel. "Maybe now you'll learn to quit while you're ahead." I stood there, hand pressed to my throbbing face, tasting copper where I'd bitten my cheek. But here's what surprised me. I wasn't afraid. I was calm, eerily, impossibly calm. This was the last time I thought the words crystal clear. I've made sure of it. Nathan breathed hard, fist still clenched, waiting for me to cry or crumple. Melissa had already gone back to her phone, bored. I lowered my hand, looked at them both, really looked. at the man who'd promised to love and protect me, at the daughter I'd carried and raised and sacrificed everything for. Strangers. They were strangers who'd been eating at my table, spending my money, breaking me piece by piece for 3 decades. Without a word, I turned toward the kitchen. Behind me, Nathan muttered something. Melissa's laugh followed me down the hall. The kitchen was dark except for under cabinet lights I'd left on this morning. On the island sat a silver serving tray covered with a domed lid. I'd placed it there this afternoon before work, positioned perfectly in the center. My hands had stopped shaking. It was 10:15 p.m., and everything was about to change. I stood at the kitchen sink, my hands trembling as I splashed cold water on my face. The sting on my cheek was already fading, but the clarity in my mind had never been sharper. I looked at the silver serving tray sitting on the counter, its lid closed tight. I was 32 when I married Nathan. He was 35, charming, ambitious, full of promises. We were happy then, or at least I thought we were. I wore a white dress. He wore a suit that didn't quite fit. We honeymooned in Myrtle Beach and dreamed of a life together. I didn't know then that dreams could rot. Nathan lost his job for the first time. Not his fault, he said. Budget cuts, he said. But I saw the change. The drinking started. The anger followed. The first time he raised his hand to me, I told myself it was stress. The second time, I told myself it would get better. It never did. I'd been promoted to senior controller at my firm, a stepping stone to CFO. Nathan didn't congratulate me. He barely looked at me. And when I came home late that night, celebrating with my colleague Linda, he slapped me across the face and told me I was getting too big for my britches. That was the night I stopped pretending. I started planning in silence. First, the house. I'd bought it 15 years ago with my own down payment. Nathan's credit was too damaged from gambling debts to qualify for the mortgage. I convinced him to let me be the only name on the deed. Lower interest rate, I'd told him. He was too lazy to read the paperwork. The house had always been mine, legally, solely. Second, the divorce papers. I drafted them with my attorney, Sarah Whitman. Clean, simple, no contestation clause. I just needed Nathan's signature, and I knew exactly when I'd get it. Third, the financial evidence. 15 years of bank statements showing that my salary had been the only income supporting this family. Nathan's paychecks, when he had them, went to bars, casinos, and loan sharks. Fourth, the cameras. I installed 8 of them throughout the house, hidden in smoke detectors, picture frames, the hallway clock. Not in the bathrooms, of course, just everywhere else. For 3 months, they recorded every slap, every shove, every vicious word Nathan and Melissa threw at me. The footage uploaded to a secure cloud account in real time. Sarah Whitman had access to every second. And then 3 months ago, I did something I never thought I would. Nathan came home drunk one night, stumbling, slurring, reeking of whiskey and desperation. He passed out on the couch with his laptop still open beside him. I stood there in the dark, staring at the glowing screen. For 30 years, I'd trusted him. For 30 years, I'd been the fool. Not anymore. I opened his work files, backup folders, expense reports he'd saved locally, ones he thought he'd deleted from the company server, fake client dinners, non-existent conference trips, wire transfers to his personal account. 73,000. I copied everything onto a USB drive. Then I created an anonymous email account and sent the files directly to his company's HR department with a single line. You might want to audit your sales manager. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. The truth would speak for itself. Fifth, the eviction. I'd already contacted Bob Sullivan, the security chief at our gated Ballantine community 2 weeks ago. I explained the situation. I showed him the deed, the divorce papers, the camera footage. He promised that when I called, he'd come immediately. Sixth, the belongings. That afternoon, while Nathan was at work and Melissa was out spending my money, I'd packed 3 large trash bags with their clothes, toiletries, and personal items. I hid them in the garage, ready to be thrown out with them. Everything was ready. I opened the silver tray and checked the documents one last time. House deed, divorce papers, bank statements, 15 years of me carrying this family alone, and one more document that would destroy Melissa completely. I closed the lid. The clock on the wall read 10:38 p.m. I took a breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked back into the living room. Dinner is ready, I said calmly. Both of you, sit down. If you're still here with me, pause for a moment and think about this. if this were happening to you, how would you react? Would you stay silent, or would you finally take control of your life? Share your thoughts in the comments and stay with me, because what happens next is the moment everything comes to light. And just so you know, the next part of this story includes some dramatized elements created for storytelling purposes. Some details may not be entirely real. If this isn't something you wish to continue, you're free to stop watching here. Nathan and Melissa exchanged glances, confused, but they followed me to the dining room table. I set the silver tray down in the center with a quiet clink. "What is this?" Nathan asked, his tone already defensive. I didn't answer. I simply lifted the lid. Inside were 5 neat stacks of documents. I pulled out the first stack and placed it in front of Nathan. "This," I said, "is the deed to 2847 Arbor Glen Drive." Nathan picked it up, scanned it, and frowned. "So, read the name on it." His eyes moved across the page, then stopped. "Morgan Mercer, sole owner." "Has been for 15 years, I said. "Remember when we bought this place, your credit was so bad from gambling that the bank wouldn't approve you. I convinced you to let me be the only name on the deed. You were too lazy to read the paperwork. You signed anyway." Nathan's jaw tightened. "But this is my house." "No," I said quietly. "It was never your house. You just lived in mine." Melissa's eyes darted between us, her expression shifting from confusion to alarm. I pulled out the second stack. "These," I said, "are divorce papers, already signed by me. All you need to do is add your signature and we're done." Nathan shoved the papers back at me. "I'm not signing anything." "You will," I said, "because if you don't, I'll make sure every piece of evidence I have against you ends up in the hands of the police." "Evidence!" His voice rose. "What evidence?" I pulled out the third stack, 15 years of bank statements. "These show that my salary has been the only source of income for this household for the past 15 years. You've contributed nothing. In fact, you've been a drain." I placed the fourth stack in front of him. "These are copies of your company's internal expense reports, falsified client dinners, fake conference trips, wire transfers to your personal account to cover gambling debts." Nathan's face went white. "Where did you get those?" "I found them on your laptop 3 months ago," I said evenly. "You came home drunk, passed out on the couch. Your laptop was still open. I copied everything, every fake receipt, every wire transfer, every backup file you thought you'd deleted." Nathan's voice cracked. "You went through my computer." 73,000, I continued. 45,000 in payments to loan sharks, all documented. Nathan stood his chair, scraping loudly against the floor. "You had no right. I sent them anonymously to your HR department," I said, cutting him off. 3 months ago. I didn't need to sign my name. The evidence spoke for itself. Your company has been investigating you ever since, Nathan. They've just been waiting for the right moment to act." His hands balled into fists. "You set me up." "No," I said. "You set yourself up. I just made sure the truth came to light." Melissa's voice broke the silence. "Mom, don't call me that," I said sharply. "You've called me Morgan for the past 3 years. Don't start pretending now." I pulled out the 5th and final stack, and this one I placed in front of Melissa. Her face went pale as she saw the top page. 3 credit cards, I said, opened in my name, using my social security number, my address, my information. Melissa's hands trembled. "I can explain. $22,000 in debt," I continued. "Across 3 cards. Forged signatures on every application. Identity theft is a federal crime, Melissa. You could go to prison." "Mom, please." Her voice broke into a sob. "I was desperate. You were selfish," I said coldly. "You've been living off me for 29 years, and when that wasn't enough, you stole my identity." Nathan lunged forward, grabbing the credit card statements. "This is fake. You can't do this." "I already have," I said. "Every document here is real. Every piece of evidence is backed up in the cloud. My attorney has copies. So does Ballantine Security." I stood facing both of them. "Here's what's going to happen. You have 2 choices. Option 1, you both sign the divorce papers, pack your things, and leave tonight. Quietly, no drama, no police. And option 2, Nathan spat. "I call the police right now," I said. With all of this evidence, embezzlement, identity theft, domestic violence, I have 3 months of camera footage showing every time you've laid a hand on me, Nathan. Every cruel word, every threat. Nathan's face twisted with rage. You bitch! This is my house! I didn't flinch. Read the deed again. Your name was never on it. I'll fight you, he snarled. I'll take everything. You have nothing to take, I said. And if you try, I will bury you. For a moment, the room was silent except for Melissa's quiet sobbing. Then Nathan's face contorted, and he lunged toward me. His hand raised. The clock on the wall read 11:01 p.m. His hand caught my collar, twisting the fabric tight against my throat. Not enough to choke, but enough to remind me of every other time. Dad hit her, Melissa shrieked from the couch. I didn't struggle. Instead, I lifted one hand and pointed at the ceiling corner. Look up, Nathan. His grip loosened. What? Look up. His eyes followed my finger. Melissa stood craning her neck. There nestled in the crown molding was a tiny black lens no bigger than a button. A red light blinked steadily. Camera, I said quietly. 8 of them throughout the house. Nathan's hand dropped. He stepped back, head swiveling. I watched him spot the second one in the smoke detector, then the third in the mirror frame. You've been recording us 3 months. I straightened my blouse. Every room except bathrooms. Living room, kitchen, hallways, bedroom. Melissa's face went white. That's illegal. It's my house. I can install security cameras. My voice stayed matter of fact. And they've captured interesting footage. Nathan's hands clenched. What footage? 7 incidents of you raising your hand to me, including tonight. I gestured to the corner camera. That one got a perfect angle just now, and Melissa encouraging you. Mom, it caught every insult for 3 months. I continued. Every time you called me useless, every time you laughed while he hurt me, every time you spent my money and treated me like hired help. I turned back to Nathan and other things you thought were private. His jaw tightened. He knew. The cameras had caught more than just the violence. All of it uploads to cloud storage in real time, I added. Attorney Sarah Whitman has access to every second. Even if you destroyed every camera right now, the evidence is safe. You planned this. His voice was barely a whisper. 6 months. Since the day you told me my promotion made you feel small. I pulled out my phone. I gave you a choice. Sign and leave with dignity. But you chose violence. So now we do this my way. Wait. I pressed a contact labeled security. 2 rings. Don't, Nathan said, fear finally in his voice. Ms. Morgan, a deep male voice answered. Everything okay? Bob, I need you at 2847 Arbor Glen immediately. Eviction situation. Nathan lunged for the phone. I sidestepped easily. 30 years had taught me to read his movements. On our way, 2 minutes. Thank you. I ended the call. Nathan stood frozen hands outstretched. Too late, I said. They're coming. You can't. I already did. A siren chirped outside, brief, sharp official. Nathan heard it. His face crumbled from anger to panic. Melissa collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. This isn't happening. Nathan turned to me. For a moment, I saw the man I'd married, desperate, scared, small. You'll regret this. You'll be alone. Nobody. I looked at him and felt nothing but cool relief. I've been alone for 15 years, Nathan. Living with people who treat you like you don't exist. That's the loneliest thing in the world. I gestured to the documents, the cameras, the footsteps approaching outside. This is liberation. The doorbell rang. Firm knock. Security, Ms. Morgan. I walked past Nathan, frozen in the middle of the room, past Melissa with her face buried in her hands. I opened the door. Bob Sullivan stood on my step, tall and solid in Navy uniform. Early 50s gray hair, cropped military, short, calm authority from 20 years handling disputes. Another guard stood behind him, hand on his radio. Miss Morgan. Bob nodded respectfully. What's the situation? I stepped aside. He could see Nathan standing there, Melissa crying, documents scattered on the table. These 2 need to leave, I said quietly. Now. Bob's eyes assessed the scene professionally. He'd been Ballantyne's security chief 8 years. He knew our family. He'd seen the police reports I never filed, heard midnight arguments across lawns. He knew. Understood, he said. We'll handle it. The clock read 11:15 p.m. Everything I'd planned for 6 months was finally happening. I stepped back from the doorway. Bob Sullivan walked into my home with quiet authority, the second guard following behind, hand near his radio. Bob's eyes swept the room, Nathan frozen by the coffee table, Melissa sobbing on the couch, scattered documents everywhere. "Ms. Morgan," Bob said, "what's the situation?" I pointed at Nathan and Melissa. "They need to leave now." "May I see the documentation?" I handed him the house deed and divorce papers. Bob read them, angling toward the lamplight. A slight nod when he found what he needed. "Everything's in order." He handed them back. "We can proceed." "This is illegal." Nathan's voice cracked. "You can't throw us out." Bob turned to face him, suddenly more formidable. "Sir, this is private property. The sole owner requests you leave. Would you prefer I call Charlotte Mecklenburg Police, Ms. Morgan has grounds for trespassing." Nathan's mouth snapped shut. Melissa's voice came thin and desperate. "We don't have anywhere to go. It's almost midnight." I looked at her. "You should have thought about that before you stole my identity and racked up $22,000 in debt." Her face crumpled. Bob glanced between us. 5 minutes to collect personal items. Clothes, phones, wallets, nothing else. Move. Nathan bolted upstairs, Melissa scrambling after. Drawers slammed, closets opened, voices overlapped in panic. I walked through the kitchen into the garage. The 3 black trash bags sat where I'd left them this afternoon behind the recycling bins. I dragged them out, heavy, stuffed, full, and hauled them to the front door. Pushed them outside onto the porch with dull thuds. Bob watched but said nothing. Nathan appeared at the stairs, arms full of clothes phone charger dangling. Melissa followed, clutching a half-zipped duffel bag. They stopped when they saw the 3 black bags on the porch behind me. "What?" Melissa stared. "What is that?" "Your belongings. I packed them this afternoon. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, the essentials." Nathan's face went purple. "You planned—" "5 minutes are up," Bob said. "Time to go." The second guard stepped between Nathan and me. Bob moved to escort Melissa. "No, I'm not leaving." Nathan's voice dropped dangerous. Bob didn't flinch. "Sir, you need to come with us. Easy way or hard way. Your choice." Nathan looked at me, rage, disbelief, fear, hatred flashing across his face. "You'll pay for this, you hear me?" I stood with arms crossed, silent. Bob's hand closed on Nathan's shoulder. "Let's go." They moved him toward the door. Melissa stumbled behind, crying. Nathan grabbed 1 black bag, Melissa another. The guard handed Nathan the 3rd. Nathan turned back. "You'll be alone. Nobody's going to want you. You're 62 and you'll die alone." The words should have hurt. A year ago they would have. "I've been alone for 15 years. Nathan," I said quietly, "living with you was the loneliest thing I've ever experienced. This," I gestured around, "this is liberation." Bob guided them down the steps. Then, as if the universe had been waiting, the sky opened up. Rain came down in sheets, sudden cold, relentless. Thunder rumbled over uptown Charlotte. Nathan and Melissa stood on my walkway, clutching trash bags, rain soaking through their clothes in seconds. The porch light caught water streaming down their faces. Melissa looked back. "Mom, please." For a second, I saw her at 7, gap-toothed, holding my hand at the park. Before Nathan taught her that cruelty was currency. "I don't have a daughter," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I haven't had one for years." Bob stood between us, rain darkening his uniform. "Ms. Morgan pressed charges for the assault or embezzlement. Not tonight, but if they come back, either of them call police immediately." "Understood. We'll monitor the property." "Thank you, Bob." He nodded and followed Nathan and Melissa. 3 figures walked toward the gate, 2 security guards and 2 people carrying everything in garbage bags. I stood in the doorway and watched until they disappeared into rain and darkness. Then I stepped inside, closed the door, turned the deadbolt. The click echoed through the quiet house. My house. Mine alone. I leaned against the door, eyes closed, feeling 30 years slide off my shoulders. It was done. 30 years, gone in 40 minutes. I walked to the living room window. Through rain-streaked glass, I could just make out 2 figures at the end of Arbor Glen Drive, standing under the entrance sign trying to shield themselves. Nathan was on his phone, probably calling a taxi that wouldn't come. Melissa stood beside him, arms wrapped around herself, trash bag at her feet. They had no idea where they were going, and for the first time in 15 years, that wasn't my problem. The clock read 11:40 p.m. I turned from the window and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady. My house was quiet, and I was finally free. I stood at the living room window for longer than I'd intended, watching the rain blur the streetlights into soft halos. Even after they disappeared from view, I couldn't quite bring myself to turn away. The clock ticked past midnight. Tuesday morning, technically, the first hours of my new life. I wondered where they'd go. If Nathan would swallow his pride and call someone a friend, a co-worker, anyone who might take them in at this hour. If Melissa would finally understand what it meant to have nowhere safe to land. Through the rain-streaked glass, I imagined I could still see them at the subdivision entrance. Nathan jabbing at his phone screen while Melissa huddled under the decorative entrance sign that read, "Ballantine, a community of excellence." The irony wasn't lost on me. I learned later through Linda, who heard it from her neighbor who worked night security, what actually happened to them that night. Nathan had tried calling a taxi, 3 different companies, but with only $47 in his wallet and no working credit cards, his were maxed out from the gambling. Melissa's were the fraudulent ones in my name. No one would come. Uber and rideshare apps wanted payment up front. His account was frozen. So they walked. In the rain, carrying black trash bags, they walked to the nearest public park, a small green space about a mile from Arbor Glen Drive. There was a pavilion there, the kind with picnic tables bolted to concrete, where families held birthday parties on summer weekends. That's where they spent the night. I pictured Melissa's phone dying slowly, the battery percentage dropping as she desperately scrolled through contacts, trying to find someone who'd answer at 1:30 in the morning. I imagined Nathan sitting on a damp picnic table, his back against a support post, finally feeling the full weight of what he'd lost. Did they fight? Probably. Melissa blaming him for the gambling, the temper, the violence that had brought them to this moment. Nathan shouting back that he'd supported her for 29 years, conveniently forgetting it was my salary that paid for everything. With Mom's money, Melissa would have said, and maybe that's when it finally hit them both. The rain would have slowed around 3 in the morning. That's what it did in Charlotte, these spring storms that came hard and fast and then softened into drizzle. I imagine Nathan slumped on that stone bench, his back aching from the cold and damp. Melissa curled up on the table itself, using one of the trash bags as a blanket, crying herself into fitful sleep. At dawn, I was making coffee in my quiet kitchen by then. Nathan would have stood up joint-stiff phone battery in the red, 12%, maybe less. "I'm going to the office," he would have said to Melissa. "I'll fix this." And Melissa exhausted and scared. What if Mom already told them? She wouldn't dare. That's what he would have thought. That I was bluffing. That the embezzlement evidence was fake, or that I'd never actually report him because it would embarrass the family. He'd spent 30 years underestimating me. Why would this morning be any different? I sipped my coffee, watching the sun come up through my kitchen window, my window in my house, and knew exactly where Nathan was headed. South Park, Morrison Boulevard. His office, where he'd worked for 2 years, where he thought he still had a job. He had no idea that yesterday, Monday, while I was at work and he was lounging in his recliner, his company had completed their internal audit. That the discrepancy reports were already on his CEO's desk. That HR director, Jennifer Walsh, had already drafted the termination paperwork. He was walking into an ambush and didn't know it. Melissa would have stayed in that park, I figured, clutching her trash bag phone down to 4%, wondering how her life had fallen apart in a single night. I set down my coffee cup. The clock on my microwave read 6:00 a.m. Nathan was probably halfway to South Park by now, walking along the main road still damp from the rain, carrying his pathetic bag of belongings and whatever was left of his pride. I should have felt something. Guilt, maybe, remorse. Some small pang of sympathy for the man I'd once loved enough to marry. But all I felt was the quiet satisfaction of a plan executed perfectly, and the deep, settled peace of finally being alone. At 7:45 that morning, my phone buzzed. It was a text from David, a colleague at Nathan's company. "Morgan just saw Nathan walk into the building. Looks rough. HR called an emergency meeting at 9. Thought you should know. I stared at the message from my corner office on the 40th floor. Through the window uptown, Charlotte gleamed in the morning sun, sharp, clean, unforgiving. Nathan had no idea what was waiting for him. I didn't respond to David. I didn't need to. I already knew exactly what was about to happen. Nathan walked through the glass doors of his office building, soaked and exhausted. His shirt was wrinkled, stained with rain and sweat. His hair was matted. He smelled like a man who'd slept in a park pavilion. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Mr. Mercer." "Morning," Nathan muttered, brushing past her toward the elevator. He had 45 minutes before anyone else arrived. 45 minutes to clean up, to look presentable, to figure out what the hell he was going to do. He didn't have 45 minutes. Nathan sat at his desk, staring blankly at his computer screen when the email notification pinged. From Jennifer Walsh, Director of Human Resources, subject, "Urgent meeting, required time." 9 a.m. Conference Room B. "Nathan, your presence is required for an urgent meeting this morning at 9 a.m. in Conference Room B. This is mandatory and time-sensitive. Jennifer Walsh." Nathan's stomach dropped. He told himself it was routine, a scheduling conflict, a client complaint. But deep down, he knew. 8:45 a.m., the wait. Nathan sat in the hallway outside Conference Room B, his leg bouncing uncontrollably. His phone battery was at 4%. He had $12 left in his wallet. Melissa wasn't answering. And Morgan had destroyed him. The door opened. Jennifer Walsh stood in the doorway, early 40s, sharp suit, no warmth in her expression. "Come in, Nathan." He followed her inside. Sitting at the head of the table was Michael Grant, the CEO, 50 years old, tailored suit, cold eyes. On the table in front of them was a thick folder labeled Internal Audit. Nathan felt his throat close. "Sit down," Michael said. Nathan sat. Jennifer opened the folder. Inside were printouts, dozens of them. Expense reports, wire transfer records, bank statements. "We received an anonymous email 3 months ago," Jennifer began, "with attachments, backup files from your own laptop, expense reports you thought you'd deleted, wire transfer records. The sender didn't leave a name, but the evidence was irrefutable. We launched a full internal audit immediately." Nathan's mouth went dry. "I can explain. You embezzled $73,000. Michael said, his voice flat. "Over 18 months, fake client dinners, fake conference expenses, wire transfers directly into your personal account. I was going to pay it back. You were paying off gambling debts," Jennifer cut in. "$45,000 to loan sharks. We have the receipts, Nathan, the bank records, security footage of you accessing company accounts after hours." Nathan's hands gripped the edge of the table. "This is a setup. My wife, your wife," Michael said coldly, "has nothing to do with this. You stole from this company. You violated our trust, and you broke the law." Jennifer slid a single sheet of paper across the table. "Effective immediately, you are terminated. Security will escort you out. You have 10 minutes to collect your personal belongings. If you attempt to access company property files or clients after you leave this building, we will press charges." Nathan stared at the paper, his vision blurring. "We could involve the police," Michael added. "We probably should. But for now, we're giving you one chance to walk away quietly. Take it." Nathan's voice cracked. "I have nothing." "That's not our problem," Jennifer said. At 9:15 a.m., Nathan was escorted out of the building by security carrying a cardboard box with a coffee mug, a photo frame, and 3 pens inside. His phone was dead. His wallet was empty. His career was over. And somewhere across town, Morgan was starting hers. That morning, I dressed for work with more care than usual. Charcoal gray suit, the one I'd bought last month, but hadn't had courage to wear. It felt like armor. I pinned my hair into a neat bun, applied lipstick in a shade I'd always thought too bold. Today, I decided I was exactly the right age for it. At 9 o'clock, I met with Michael Grant, CEO of the firm where I'd worked 20 years. His office on the 42nd floor overlooked the whole city. "Morgan," he said, shaking my hand. "Congratulations on CFO. It's official today. Chief Financial Officer. The title I'd worked 2 decades for. Thank you, Michael. I'm excited for this next chapter. We spent an hour on transition plans, budget projections, quarterly reviews, professional talk, except now I was the one making final decisions. At 10 o'clock, we walked out together. Michael was headed to a breakfast meeting. I was getting coffee. The revolving door spat us onto South Tryon Street. Downtown Charlotte buzzed with Tuesday morning energy business suits, food trucks, the light rail chiming past. Michael was talking about next month's charity event when I saw him. Across the street, standing on the opposite sidewalk. Nathan. He was holding a cardboard box. His shirt from yesterday was wrinkled and stained, hair stuck up and back. He looked 10 years older overnight. Our eyes met across 4 lanes of traffic. For 3 seconds, the world went quiet. I saw his mouth open. Saw him step toward the curb box, nearly slipping. Saw his hands start to rise like he'd call out. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just distant, cool indifference. Like looking at a stranger who vaguely resembled someone I used to know. Morgan. Michael's voice pulled me back. You okay? I turned from Nathan, smiled at Michael. I'm perfect. Sorry, thought I saw someone. An old friend. No, just someone I used to know. Michael's company car pulled up, black Lincoln Town Car, tinted windows. The driver opened the rear door. Can I give you a lift? I glanced back across the street. Nathan stood frozen box clutched to his chest. People flowed around him like water around stone. He'd figured it out. The timing, the choreography. Audit Monday. Eviction. Monday night, 11:40. Termination Tuesday 9:15, and now 10 o'clock Tuesday morning, less than 12 hours after I'd locked my door, here I was, promoted, successful, standing with the CEO while Nathan held everything in a box. I'd planned every minute, and he finally knew. Morgan. Michael waited by the car. Yes, a lift would be lovely. I slid into the back seat, cool leather, the door closed with a solid thunk. As we pulled away, I looked out the window one last time. Nathan had dropped the box. It spilled on the sidewalk, coffee mug, pens, shattered photographs, scattered glass. He was on his knees gathering pieces while people stepped around him annoyed. I watched until we turned the corner and he disappeared. Big day, Michael said, scrolling his phone. How are you feeling? I leaned back and let out a breath I'd held 30 years. Free, I said. I feel free. Michael smiled, not understanding, but pleased. That's the spirit. You've earned this, Morgan. I had earned it. With every hour worked while Nathan watched TV, every paycheck deposited while he gambled, every night lying awake planning escape while he snored oblivious. I'd earned every single moment. The car merged onto 4th Street, heading uptown. Through the window, Charlotte looked beautiful, glass and steel and possibility. Somewhere behind us, Nathan was probably still on his knees gathering pieces of a life he'd shattered himself. And I was in a Lincoln Town car heading toward a future he couldn't touch. I pulled out my phone, texted Linda coffee this afternoon, I have news. Immediate reply, I heard CEO called this morning. CFO Morgan. So proud of you. I smiled and tucked my phone away. The car glided through downtown, smooth and quiet, carrying me toward everything I'd fought for. And I didn't look back. Not even once. I didn't know what happened to them that afternoon. I was at my desk, still getting used to the nameplate reading Morgan Richardson, CFO, when Linda stopped by with coffee and congratulations. It wasn't until later I pieced together where they went, what they did, how far they'd fallen in 24 hours. While I settled into my corner office, they were selling off the last pieces of their dignity. Nathan walked back to the park around 12:30. Melissa was still there, huddled under the pavilion trash bags beside her. Phone dead. Makeup smeared into dark circles. Well, she said when she saw him. Nathan dropped onto the bench. I'm fired. What? They knew. The embezzlement. Everything. His voice was hollow. And I saw her, Morgan, coming out of her building downtown with her CEO. She got promoted to CFO. He laughed bitterly. She planned it all. Audit Monday, eviction Monday night, fired Tuesday morning, promoted Tuesday morning. She timed every piece. Melissa's face went gray. While we were living in her house, she was planning. We have nothing, Nathan said. No money, no home, no job. This is your fault. Melissa's voice rose. Your gambling, your temper. Shut up. No, you destroyed. His hand cracked across her face. Melissa stumbled back, hitting the post. She stared at him, hand on her cheek, eyes wide. "You're just like him," she whispered. "Exactly like him." Nathan looked at his raised hand and slowly lowered it. 30 years hitting Morgan, now starting on Melissa. The cycle continued. "We need money," he said finally. "What do we have?" They counted. Nathan had $47 cash, a fake Tag Heuer watch wedding ring. Melissa had $12 diamond earrings Morgan gave her at 21 and an iPhone. "We sell everything," Nathan said. The pawn shop on Central Avenue had bars on windows and flickering neon reading, "Cash." The man behind the counter, 50s beard, faded tattoos, looked them over with weary recognition. Nathan laid down the watch. "Tag Heuer, paid $800. The man picked it up, snorted. "Fake, $200. 200 or nothing." Nathan's jaw clenched. "Fine." Melissa set down the earrings, hands shaking. "Real diamonds, worth $8,000. The man examined them through a loop. $650. $650. Melissa's voice cracked. "For $8,000 earrings." "Supply and demand. Best I can do." Nathan put down his wedding ring. 30 years of marriage. "How much?" $350. Nathan closed his eyes. "Deal." $1,200 total. They walked out with cash and nothing else of value. Budget Inn on East Independence Boulevard advertised weekly rates in peeling letters. The parking lot was cracked asphalt and cigarette butts. The office smelled like mildew and defeated air freshener. $180 a week, the clerk said, not looking up. "Cash up front." Nathan counted out bills. 1 week. The clerk handed him a key on plastic. Room 14, checkouts 10. Room 14 had stained carpet, a flickering TV bathroom tiles that were maybe white in 1987. Melissa spotted a roach and made a strangled sound. They sat on the bed plywood with a thin sheet. "How did we get here?" Melissa whispered. Nathan didn't answer for a long time. Then, "Your mother. She destroyed us." "No." Melissa's voice was quiet but firm. "We destroyed ourselves." Nathan turned to look at her. "You gambled our money, stole from your company, hit Mom for 15 years. And I—" her voice broke. "I stole her identity, laughed when you hurt her, treated her like nothing. She didn't destroy us, Dad. She just stopped letting us destroy her." Nathan had no response. He lay back and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Beside him, Melissa wiped her eyes and looked at the envelope, $1,020 Nathan had tucked under his pillow. Everything they had left. The clock read 6:47 p.m. Tuesday evening, less than 36 hours since Morgan served them dinner on a silver tray. Melissa lay down, turning away from her father, but she didn't sleep. She kept thinking about that envelope. "I didn't know it that night, but while I slept peacefully in my quiet house on Arbor Glen Drive, Melissa was making the same choice I'd made 24 hours earlier, the choice to save herself." Linda told me later what the motel security footage showed, what Melissa did in the dark hours of Wednesday morning while her father slept, and I dreamed of my new office with my name on the door. At 2 in the morning, Nathan was finally deeply asleep. 48 hours without rest had caught up to him. He lay on his back on that terrible motel bed mouth, open snoring softly. Melissa lay beside him, eyes wide open, staring at the water-stained ceiling. She'd been lying there for 7 hours, thinking, calculating, coming to the same conclusion over and over. "I'm 29 years old, no college degree, no real job experience, no future. Dad's gambling will burn through that money in weeks, maybe days. If I stay, I'll drown with him. I have to save myself." At 2 o'clock exactly, she sat up. Slowly, carefully. The bed springs creaked, but Nathan didn't stir. She reached under his pillow. The envelope was right there, barely hidden. He'd been too exhausted to think about security, too broken to imagine his daughter would do to him what he'd spent 30 years doing to me, taking what wasn't really hers. Melissa pulled out the envelope and carried it to the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the closed toilet lid and counted under the flickering fluorescent light. $1,020, everything they had. She took $20 and put it back in the envelope. Enough for Nathan to eat for a day, maybe 2. Not enough to matter. The other 1,000 she folded carefully and stuffed into the front pocket of her jeans. She changed out of her sleeping clothes into jeans and a hoodie, washed her face, stared at herself in the spotted mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. When had she become this person? She knew the answer. She'd always been this person. She'd just been better at hiding it when Mom was paying the bills. Melissa found a motel notepad and pen by the bathroom sink. Wrote quickly, "Dad, I'm sorry. I have to go. M." She folded the note, walked back into the room, and set it on the nightstand next to Nathan's side of the bed. He was still snoring, mouth open, vulnerable. 50 years of poor choices etched into the lines of his face. For just a moment, Melissa felt something like guilt. Then she thought about the envelope of money in her pocket, about bus tickets and fresh starts in cities where nobody knew her name. She opened the door as quietly as she could, slipped out, let it click softly shut behind her. The motel parking lot was empty except for a few beat-up cars and a pickup truck with a tarp over the bed. Security lights buzzed overhead, attracting moths. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Melissa pulled out her iPhone, still at 38% battery, and opened the rideshare app. Pick up Budget Inn, East Independence Boulevard. Drop off Charlotte Transportation Center. The fare came up $15. She confirmed it. Driver arriving in 8 minutes. She stood under a dying streetlight and waited, arms wrapped around herself, even though it wasn't cold. Just after 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. The world felt vast and empty and full of possibility. 8 minutes later, a silver Toyota pulled into the lot. The driver, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes, rolled down her window. "Melissa, that's me." "Hop in." Melissa slid into the back seat. The car smelled like vanilla air freshener and old coffee. "Greyhound Station?" the driver asked. "Yes, Charlotte Transportation Center." Running away or starting over? Melissa looked out the window as the Budget Inn sign faded behind them. "Is there a difference?" The driver smiled sadly. "Not really, honey, not really." They drove through empty Charlotte streets, past closed businesses and sleeping neighborhoods, and the occasional all-night diner. Melissa watched it all pass and felt nothing. No regret, no fear, just a hollow sort of relief. She had $1,000 and a phone and no one to answer to. It was more freedom than she'd ever had in her life. The motel security camera had caught it all, Melissa walking to the parking lot, getting into the car, driving away. But Nathan wouldn't check that footage, wouldn't even think to ask. He'd just wake up, read the note, and realize his daughter had done exactly what I'd taught them both. She'd chosen herself. At 2:30 in the morning, while Nathan slept in room 14 of the Budget Inn, dreaming whatever dreams desperate men dream, Melissa was halfway to the Greyhound Station with everything he had left tucked in her pocket. And I was at home in my bed, in my house, sleeping better than I had in 15 years. None of us knew it yet, but the story was far from over. Wednesday morning, I was reviewing quarterly budgets when Bob Sullivan called. "Ms. Morgan, your ex-husband, showed up at the house." I set down my pen. "Did he try to get in?" "Tried. Couldn't. Locks are changed." He looked through windows, then broke down on the front step. Bob's voice softened. "I had to escort him out. He's in bad shape." "Thank you for handling it, Bob. He won't be back. I made that clear." After I hung up, I stared at the Charlotte skyline through my window. Somewhere out there, Nathan was discovering how thoroughly I'd dismantled his life. Then I went back to my spreadsheet. Later, Bob filled in the rest. Nathan woke at 9 Wednesday morning to an empty room. "Melissa," he called out. "Melissa." Silence. He sat up. The bathroom door stood open, empty. Her trash bag was gone. Every trace of her had vanished. Then he saw the note on the nightstand. "Dad, I'm sorry. I have to go. M." "No," he whispered. He reached under his pillow. The envelope was there, but too light. Inside, a single $20 bill. $1,000 gone. "She took everything," he breathed. "My own daughter." 30 years of taking from me and Melissa had learned the lesson too well. At 9:30, the motel manager knocked. "Mr. Nathan, week's up tomorrow, paying for another." Nathan looked at the 20 in his hand. A week cost $180. He had 20. "I don't have money." "Out by 10 a.m. Thursday, no exceptions." The manager left. At 10 o'clock, Nathan tried his phone. "Called Melissa. The number you have dialed is no longer in service." Called me, "The caller you are trying to reach is not accepting calls from this number." Emailed me, "This sender has been blocked by the recipient." Nothing. No one. Nowhere. Nathan threw his phone across the room. The screen cracked but didn't break. At 11, he walked out of the Budget Inn and started the long trek to Ballantine. 45 minutes later, he stood at 2847 Arbor Glen Drive. The first thing he saw a sign on the lawn. Sold. No, he breathed. How? He tried his key. Didn't work. Locks changed. He looked through the front window. Empty. Completely, utterly empty. The couch gone. His recliner gone. Coffee table gone. Walls bare. No pictures, no furniture, nothing. Like no one had ever lived there. Nathan moved window to window. Kitchen empty. Dining room empty. Through the back window, he could see the upstairs bedrooms were stripped clean, too. It looked like no one had ever lived there at all. Nathan sank to his knees on the front step. "She sold it," he whispered. "But it's only been 3 weeks." But even as he said it, understanding crashed over him. I hadn't listed the house after evicting them. I'd listed it a month before. I'd signed the sale contract with a clause for immediate handover within the week. And because the house had always been solely in my name purchased 15 years ago, when his credit was too damaged from gambling to qualify, Nathan had no legal say in the sale. No signature required. No consent needed. It had never been his house legally, just mine. Professional movers had arrived at 4 a.m. on Tuesday, while Nathan was wandering the streets and Melissa was curled up in that park pavilion. By the time the sun rose Tuesday morning, the house was empty. Furniture, pictures, every trace of our lives gone, loaded into trucks and hauled away while they slept on park benches. $485,000 deposited into my account Monday afternoon. And Nathan hadn't known until this moment, kneeling on the front step with $20 in his pocket. A security vehicle pulled up behind him. Bob Sullivan got out. "Sir, you need to leave." "This was my home," Nathan said, voice breaking. "I lived here 30 years, raised my daughter here." "Not anymore." Bob's hand rested on his radio. "Ms. Morgan made it clear, you're not welcome. Return and she'll press trespassing charges." "Where am I supposed to go?" "Not my concern, but you need to leave Ballantine, now." Bob walked him to the subdivision entrance. Neighbors peeked through curtains, whispered behind doors. At the gate, Bob stopped. "I'm sorry it came to this, but you brought it on yourself." Nathan said nothing, just walked through the gate, heading back toward the Budget Inn. $20 in his pocket, nowhere to turn. Noon on Wednesday, 72 hours since I'd served dinner on a silver tray. Nathan had nothing. No wife, no daughter, no home, no job, no money, no future. Just $20 and the long walk back to a motel that would kick him out tomorrow. 6 months passed. I didn't see Nathan, didn't see Melissa, didn't think about them much, to be honest. I was too busy building the life I should have had all along. By June, 3 months after I'd locked that door on them, I was officially CFO. By August, I'd launched the foundation. By September, I was planning our first major charity event. But Linda kept me informed. She had a way of hearing things through her neighborhood network, through people who knew people who'd seen Nathan at the shelters or the free clinics around Charlotte. This is what she told me about those 6 months. Months 1 and 2. Nathan ended up at the Salvation Army shelter on North Tryon. It wasn't the worst place to be homeless in Charlotte, but it wasn't good either. Every morning he stood in line for breakfast, watery oatmeal, burnt coffee, a piece of fruit if he was lucky. Every evening, same line for dinner. In between, he walked the streets with a folder of resumes printed at the public library, applying for anything. Gas stations, fast food, warehouse work. No one would hire him. Word had gotten out about the embezzlement investigation. Even though he hadn't been formally charged yet, the whispers followed him. That's the guy who stole from his company. That's the guy whose wife threw him out. At night, he slept on a metal bunk bed in a room with 40 other men. The shelter smelled like sweat and desperation, an industrial cleaner that couldn't quite mask either. Men snored, coughed, cried in their sleep. Nathan stared at the ceiling and wondered how he'd gotten there. Months 3 and 4. Winter lingered into early spring, and Nathan caught a cold that wouldn't go away. It settled in his chest, made him cough until his ribs ached. But he had no insurance, no money for a doctor. The free clinic on Beatty's Ford Road gave him basic antibiotics and cough syrup. It helped a little, not enough. He kept losing weight. Shelter food wasn't enough, and he couldn't afford anything else. His clothes, the same ones he'd stuffed in those trash bags 6 months ago, hung loose on his frame. His face hollowed out. His hair went from gray to white. Linda said when her neighbors saw him at the clinic in April, she almost didn't recognize him. He'd lost 30 pounds, from 185 down to 155. At 65 years old, turning 66, he looked closer to 80. Months 5 and 6. By summer, Nathan was desperate enough to be dangerous to himself. He borrowed money from the wrong people, not the original loan sharks from before, but new ones, worse ones. When he couldn't pay them back, they found him behind a gas station on Independence Boulevard and made sure he understood the terms. Linda's neighbor saw him after that walking with a limp, one eye swollen shut. He tried calling Melissa's old number every few weeks. Still disconnected. He had no way to find her, no way to know if she was alive or dead, thriving or suffering. She'd vanished completely. He tried emailing me once more in July. The message bounced back blocked. Through the shelter grapevine, he heard that I'd been officially promoted to CFO in June, that I was doing well, that I'd started some kind of foundation for domestic violence survivors. The irony wasn't lost on him. One day in late September, Nathan sat on a bench in First Ward Park staring at nothing. He'd been sitting there for hours. A man walking by had given him $1, thinking he was panhandling. Nathan hadn't even noticed. His thoughts circled the same track they'd been on for months. I lost everything. Wife, daughter, home, job, dignity. Morgan was right. I destroyed myself. But I can't stop hating her. That last thought was the worst, because somewhere deep down he knew the hatred wasn't fair. I hadn't destroyed him. I'd just stopped letting him destroy me. But acknowledging that truth meant accepting responsibility for 30 years of choices. And Nathan wasn't ready for that. Might never be. He didn't know where Melissa was. Sometimes he imagined she was dead, overdosed in some city far away, alone and forgotten. Sometimes he imagined she'd reinvented herself, was living well somewhere under a new name, had erased him from her history, the way I'd tried to erase them from mine. Both possibilities haunted him. That evening, back at the shelter during dinner, a man Nathan vaguely knew sat down across from him. "You hear about tomorrow?" the man asked, spooning watery soup. Nathan shook his head. "Big charity thing downtown, convention center on College Street. Free hot meal, they're giving out coats and stuff. Some foundation's putting it on." Nathan looked up slightly. "Which foundation?" The man shrugged. "Don't know. Some big one. Rich people wanting to feel good about themselves, probably. But the food's supposed to be real, not shelter food. And it's going to be cold this weekend." Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'll go. Not like I have anything else." The man nodded and went back to his soup. Nathan finished his meal and went to his bunk. It was late September, 6 months since that Monday night when I'd served him dinner on a silver tray. 6 months since his life had collapsed in 40 minutes. Tomorrow he'd go to that charity event, get a hot meal, maybe a coat, try to survive another week. He had no idea that the foundation hosting the event was mine. No idea that in less than 24 hours he'd see me again for the first time in half a year. No idea that the story he thought was over was about to reach its final chapter. The morning of the charity event, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, straightening the collar of my black dress for the 3rd time. Nervous. I was actually nervous. "It's gonna be wonderful," Linda said from my doorway. "You've worked so hard on this." The Hope Rising Foundation. 6 months of planning fundraising, coordinating with shelters and social services. Our first major event. Free meals, winter coats, hygiene kits for 200 people, experiencing homelessness or escaping violence. I'd named it carefully, Hope Rising, because that's what I'd done. What I wanted others to know they could do too. "What if no one comes?" I asked. Linda laughed. "There's already a line around the block." I took a breath. "Okay, let's go." At 11 o'clock, I stood backstage at the Charlotte Convention Center on College Street, peeking through the curtain. Over 200 people filled the hall, lined up at tables where volunteers handed out supplies. The banner hung above the stage in deep blue Hope Rising Foundation, supporting domestic violence survivors. Below it, founded by Morgan Richardson, CFO. Not Morgan Mercer. I'd taken back my maiden name in August. Linda squeezed my hand. Ready? As I'll ever be. I walked onto the stage. Applause filled the hall donors, volunteers, community partners. The people in line looked up with tired, cautious hope. I gripped the microphone. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. My voice echoed. I know what it's like to feel trapped, to lose yourself so completely you forget who you were, to believe there's no way out. The hall went silent. I spent 30 years in that place, and I'm here to tell you there is a way out. There is a future. I rebuilt my life at 62 years old. If I can do it, so can you. Applause came genuine and warm. Some people wiped their eyes. I finished my speech, thanked everyone, and stepped off stage. My heart pounded in a good way, a proud way. Linda was waiting with a hug. That was perfect. As we walked through the hall, checking distribution tables, I felt it. That bone-deep satisfaction of doing something that mattered, of turning pain into purpose. And then I saw him, Nathan, standing in line 20 feet away holding a box marked Hope Rising, inside a meal coat toiletries. He looked up, our eyes met. For 3 seconds, time stopped. He'd aged a decade in a year. Gaunt face, sharp cheekbones, papery skin, clothes hung loose, hair completely white. He looked 70, not 66. And I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even pity. Just distant, cool indifference, like looking at a stranger in someone else's photograph. He stepped toward me. Morgan, Bob Sullivan appeared, stepping between us. Sir, please keep the line moving. Please, I just need... Sir. Bob's voice was firm but kind. Move along. Nathan's eyes found mine again, desperate and pleading. I turned away, continued my conversation with Linda. Didn't look back. Behind me, Nathan's footsteps shuffled away. Outside the convention center, Nathan stood on the sidewalk holding his charity box. People streamed past. He looked up at the banner through the glass doors. Hope Rising Foundation. She'd risen, built something beautiful from ashes, and he'd fallen, lost everything, become exactly the kind of person who needed her charity, and she didn't care. Not anymore. Dad, Nathan froze. That voice. He turned slowly. Melissa stood 10 feet away, half hidden behind a concrete pillar. 29, but looking older, thinner, wearing ill-fitting clothes. Hair shorter, dyed differently. But it was her. Melissa. His voice cracked. Where have you been? I've been... I know. She stepped closer. Hardness in her eyes. Calculation. I heard about the event. Figured you'd be here. I thought you were dead. I'm fine. Melissa glanced at the doors. Is she in there, Mom? Nathan nodded slowly. She doesn't want to see us. I don't want to see her either. Melissa's jaw set. I just wanted to check if you were alive. Barely. They stood in weak autumn sunlight, father and daughter, both broken. What do we do now? Nathan asked. Melissa looked at him for a long moment, then turned and started walking away. Melissa, wait. She didn't stop, just raised one hand in a half wave and disappeared into the midday crowd. Nathan stood alone holding a charity box from his ex-wife's foundation, watching his daughter walk away for the second time. Noon on a Thursday in late September. 1 year since I'd served him dinner on a silver tray, and Nathan finally realized what I'd known all along. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so happy, so successful, so free that the people who hurt you become irrelevant. Inside the convention center, I stood near the glass wall watching them. Nathan and Melissa, father and daughter, both broken, both lost, standing in the parking lot like two ghosts from a life I used to live. Linda came to stand beside me, following my gaze. That's them, isn't it? She asked quietly. It was, I said, not anymore. Through the glass, I could see Nathan showing Melissa the charity box with our foundation logo. Could see Melissa's shoulders shake, crying probably. Could see them both looking back at the building, looking for me. Do you feel anything? Linda asked. I took a breath, deep, full, clean. The kind of breath I couldn't take for 30 years. Peace, I said. I spent 3 decades drowning. Now I'm finally breathing. Nathan gestured toward the doors, maybe suggesting they try to talk to me again. Melissa shook her head. Smart girl in the end. She knew. There was nothing left to say. They turned and walked away together, two figures carrying charity boxes disappearing into the stream of people leaving the event. I watched until they were completely gone. Then I turned my back on the windows, on them, on everything they represented. Linda linked her arm through mine, ready to get back to work. Always. We walked back toward the stage where volunteers were organizing the afternoon resource fair. Behind me, the banner caught the light, Hope Rising Foundation. My life's work. My purpose. My revenge in the best possible way. I didn't look back at those windows again. Not once. 3 years later, the Hope Rising Foundation now operates in 4 cities. We've helped over 2,000 people escape violent situations, find housing, rebuild their lives. I'm 66 years old, CFO of one of Charlotte's most respected firms, founder of an organization that's changing lives every day. I bought a penthouse on the 30th floor with windows overlooking the whole city. I travel. I laugh with Linda over wine. I wake up every morning in a bed that's mine, in a home that's mine, in a life that's entirely beautifully mine. I heard through the shelter network that Nathan is still in Charlotte. Still homeless, though he's found steadier support through programs we don't fund. He's 69 now. I hope he's found some kind of peace, though I don't think about it often. Melissa left the city, someone told me. Headed west, maybe California. I hope she's doing better. I hope she learned something from watching everything fall apart. But I'll never know, and that's okay. I don't need to know, because here's what I learned in those 30 years of drowning, and in these 4 years of breathing. The best revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you. It's not making them suffer or watching them fall. The best revenge is becoming so completely radiantly happy that they become irrelevant. It's building a life so full of purpose and joy that you forget to hate them. It's waking up one day and realizing you haven't thought about them in weeks. That's freedom. That's victory. That's revenge. And it's the sweetest thing I've ever tasted. Looking back at my story, I see it clearly now. I wasted 30 years waiting for change instead of creating it. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're 62 to realize that family drama stories like mine don't have to define your whole life. God gave me 3 chances to leave when Nathan first raised his hand, when Melissa started treating me like a servant, when I saw my reflection and didn't recognize myself. But I ignored his signs. I thank God now for giving me the strength to finally walk away. And I praise God every day for the peace I've found since. Here's what I learned. Respect yourself or no one else will. Set boundaries or people will walk all over you. And remember, leaving toxic people isn't cruelty. It's self-preservation. These family drama stories teach us that blood doesn't excuse mistreatment. Even grandma stories from my own childhood warned me a house without respect is just walls and a roof. My grandmother was right. Those grandma stories about standing up for yourself weren't just old-fashioned advice, they were survival wisdom. I wish I'd listened sooner to those grandma stories. If you're in a situation like mine, ask yourself, would God want you to suffer this way? The answer is no. God wants you free, whole, and loved. To those facing similar family drama stories, break the cycle. You deserve better. To anyone who feels trapped, there is always a way out. I rose at 62. You can rise at any age. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Final note. This content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the lessons and messages are entirely valuable. If this style isn't for you, that's okay. Please seek content better suited to your needs.